Hi, brothers and sisters in Christ. My name is John Paul Felix from Subang Jaya, Malaysia, and I welcome you to Pathways of Hope. In today's gospel reading, we see Jesus sharing with the people around him about how in him we find true freedom. What led to that point is because he was sharing how we find ourselves being slaves to sin. We don't have any control. We don't have, we follow where sin takes us. We have no autonomy, no true freedom. But in God, in Jesus himself, we actually find true freedom, being set free. So that's really what he was just sharing about. And today, as I was reflecting and saying, hey, how can I share today's gospel reading? What should I, emphasize on? What should I talk about? And a couple of things that came up to mind. Number one, I'm not going to share about what sin is. I think we are very aware what sin is. Number two, I'm not going to share what the consequence of sin. I think we have seen it around us. We have seen it in our own lives, our family lives. We have seen it in the world, the political, ecosystem. We see how leaders, people who are, the consequence of greed, hatred, resentment, anger, being driven by lust, and the consequence of that. And we see the impact, not only on themselves, but, people around them. So I'm not going to share about that. I think we are very aware of this. We are very much know about this. What I'm going to touch on today is about why do we sin? Why do we keep falling into sin? I think that's very key. I think once we identify the why, we can then identify how can we overcome sin and be set free. So 3 things that come to mind why we fall into sin. Number 1 is we find our identities in sin. And it was a very interesting point, but it's true. I think many of us, if you take this away from me, this sinful nature, this gossiping or this lust or this kind of sinful behavior, then what am I? I think many of us are afraid to remove this because I think a lot of us feel that, holiness, I'm stripped away of all these things. Then what defines me? For all my life, this has been my past and this has been my future. But now this is removed from me. What then am I? The woman at the well, she was a woman known to have many, husbands that defined who she is. The tax collector, Matthew, defined him of, taking money more than it was needed. That defined who they were. But if you remove this sinful nature, who then is that woman at the well? Who then is Matthew? Who then is us? So I think that's where sometimes we find our identities, or we fall into this trap of finding identities in sin. Number 2 is that why do we fall into sin? It's because we find pleasure. We find pleasure in sin. I'm not going to deny we find pleasure in sin. Sin brings or brings out pleasure, gratification, whether it's for a moment in time or for a short period of time. We somehow still find pleasure, and it's good. Some of us fall into it because we feel a sense of goodness. We find a sense of pleasure. That's why we keep falling over and over again. But the danger of that is that we keep going back over and over and over again, trying to find the next high, trying to find the next pleasure, that gratification, to fulfill our needs, our desires at the time. And that leads to the third point. Why? Because that going back over and over again, it creates some sort of addiction. We are addicted to sin. Why we fall over and over again is because we're addicted to sin. We have become somehow slaves to sin, no longer having control, no longer having autonomy, no longer being free. But brothers and sisters, as I share you the why, I'm not going to leave us here that, okay, yeah, this is our reality. Thank you, conclusion. I'm going to end this right now. No, there is hope. There is a solution. Hope in Jesus. In him, we find true freedom. He will set you free. In the Son, he will set you free. Free indeed. And so in him, we have a message, or Jesus is sharing with us today that, hey, we can draw towards him, move towards him, and go towards him, because in him you will find true freedom. In him you will find 3 things. Number 1, you will find our true identities. No, we don't have to identify ourselves. In him we find true identities. Identities where who we should have been, who we are called to be, and who are destined to be. Yes, our past was this. Our future no longer has to be defined by our past. In him we have future. In him we find hope. In him we are children of God. That is our true identities. Number 2 is in him we find true pleasure. Pleasure that will not last for a moment in time. A pleasure of joy, contentment, happiness that only can be found in God. and not in the things of this world. Saint Augustine of Hippo says this in his prayer, "In all my desirings, I was desiring you." We cannot find fulfillment in these things of this world. We can only find, joy and contentment in the Creator of all these things. And so we can find true joy, true fulfillment found in God. So that's really the true pleasure that we'll find. The third one is true freedom. In Him we'll find true freedom. We'll be set free. No longer slaves to sin, but victors. We will be set free. We will be, in a way, no longer kept to the chains of sin. So really these are the things, true freedom, no longer bounded by sin, but set free. So these are the things that we can really find, brothers and sisters in Christ. And there is hope. And there's really hope today. And that's the key message I'm trying to share with us today. If you and I are struggling with sin today, there is hope. There is hope found in Jesus. We will find who we really are, our true identities. We will find true pleasure, joy, peace, all that we're desiring. Okay, we can find that in the Lord Himself. And the third, we will find true freedom in Him. So, my sisters, let's spend this time of the season of Lent surrendering and bringing up to the Lord our sinful nature, sinful acts, and being set free in Him, finding what we really desire through Him and in Him. All glory and praise to our God. God bless you. If you've been blessed by this particular video, brothers and sisters in Christ, I invite you to share Pathways of Hope to your friends and family. Again, my name is John Paul Felix from Subang Jaya, Malaysia. God bless you.